Morning girls. Today we're going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart, and that is the Girls series by Jacqueline Wilson. I was really excited when I got most of these on the first day I went out looking for the Jacqueline Wilson books, because these were my go-to books. I read these first, I couldn't wait to get to them. I read these so many times when I was a kid that my first copy of the books absolutely fell apart and I had to go out and buy new ones. So I've now officially owned 3 copies of these books. I was meant to get the full collection, but somebody had sneakily stuck secrets into there instead of Girls Under Pressure. So I only have 3. I did manage to get the 4th book online because I was just really desperate to read the series, but I will try and get a physical copy at some point because I just need the full collection in this box right now, please. I really love this series. I really identified with Ellie because she was, she was chubby and she had glasses. She was hopeless at maths, as usual for Jacqueline Wilson books. She's got some body image issues and she likes boys, she wants a boyfriend, but she can't really get one because she's a bit of an oddball. And I really related to all of that, so I loved these books. But she has 2 friends who were in a really close friendship, and not only did I want this really close friendship and these 2 close friends, but both the friends had their own relatable point. They both had their own appeal for me personally. Pretty sure Nadine was my first girl crush, the goth one. I wanted to be her so badly. And then, Magda's confident and she can talk to boys and she's sexy and stuff. I don't know how a 13-year-old can be sexy, but there you go. There's just something about this book. I like to read about girls. I love girls. So yeah, I really love these books growing up. So without further ado, I will get into Girls in Love, the first book. A lot of Girls in Love is Ellie and her friends are about to start year 9, and when they come back off the break, Ellie finds out that Nadine has got this boyfriend out of nowhere, and she feels really put out because usually they share secrets and stuff, and so she kind of accidentally makes up a boyfriend that's based off this boy called Dan who she met on holiday, but looks like this guy that she saw on the way to school this morning, who's 18 and really gorgeous. This liking a guy who's a lot older than her, her and the girls are 13, and this guy that she saw on the way to school is nearly 18. There's this theme throughout the books that the girls like boys who are older than them, and that's not a crime, right? It's actually pretty accurate, but there are relationships with some of these boys, and depending on the context, this could probably be considered a little bit problematic because some of the relationships are treated as kind of okay. These books were published not that long ago, but you don't understand how much the internet has changed the world, my guy. You don't understand as well how normalized it was for 14-15-year-old girls to go out with 18-year-old guys, even when I was younger. Not when I was dating, but I know that when my sister was a teenager, that was kind of the dream. That's why these books exist in a murky area, but I think that the really, really problematic relationships are treated as such, and so we're gonna go in with a little pinch of salt. The first of these inappropriate age gap relationships is between Nadine and her boyfriend Liam. Liam is 19, and when the other girls find out about Nadine's relationship with him, at first they are impressed. They do express a little bit of worry that he's so much older, but I think it's more in the vein of, oh, he won't be interested in you once he finds out that you're 13, because Nadine told him that she was a little bit older. As the story progresses, Liam is revealed to be a bad creep, and the girls do realise it pretty quickly. Nadine is a little bit slower to catch on than the other 2 because she's blinded by love or whatever. Liam is clearly portrayed as predatory eventually. There's a perspective to be taken into consideration here, as it's told from Ellie's perspective, obviously she's going to be impressed that Nadine has bagged this older guy, and only later realise that maybe that's not quite such a good thing. I think that once you do realise that though, and you go back and read it again, Jacqueline Wilson does include some good dialogue from Liam that, you know, younger readers can take and then like recognize from people that they may meet in life as red flags. When they first meet and Nadine tells Liam that she's 15, he says, oh, nearly old enough, which is obviously in reference to the fact that the legal age of consent in England is 16. When Liam finds out that Nadine is actually 13 and he's not bothered, which is a massive red flag in itself, he says, oh, it doesn't matter because you're mature for your age, and it's gross. It obviously opens up this rhetoric where she's going to think the legal age of consent does not apply to her because she's mature for her age, and then he can like get his end away, etc, etc. Like the fact that these are included in there. Other examples of this throughout the text where men will say the buzzwords and they're the red flag words that girls should look for, and you know, it teaches young girls an important lesson, even aside from the lesson that Nadine's storyline is supposed to teach them, which is about not being pressured into sex. Because yes, that is what Liam is after, surprise, surprise. We know this because he tries to pressure Nadine, actually nearly gets his way, but Nadine keeps freezing up every time they try. And so Liam's solution to this is to take Nadine to a club and give her drugs in order to relax her. I don't know whether I was like cognitive of this when I was younger, but it is discussed pretty frankly in the text. The only reason that his plan did not go ahead is because the other two girls follow Nadine and Liam to the club and, you know, realise that Nadine is off her fucking face and take her home. There is another bit in a later book, I can't remember which one it is now, where they find out Liam is seeing an even younger girl than all of them, who is in year 8 at school. And Nadine actually goes out and finds this girl and speaks to her and, you know, gets her to break it off with Liam because apparently he'd been doing exactly the same stuff to her. So yeah, Liam very clearly treated as a predator, eventually. It's never directly attributed to the fact that he's older, because obviously that would imply that all older men are predators. The fact that he is a lot older does factor into the story a lot. And I think it gives a very clear message to younger girls just not to get involved with guys that are a lot older than you, because they're obviously interested in things that you have no idea about yet. I think often when I do these like nostalgic reads, reading about the parents is the most interesting bit for me, because there's like subtler storylines going on there that might have gone over my head when I was younger. Ellie's got her dad and her stepmom Anna, and Anna's a lot younger than her dad. There's a big age gap there because she was a student at his art college. I think that Ellie's dad likes the fact that Anna is very dependent on him. You know, she's not got a proper job. The family relies on his career and she kind of stays home and looks after the kids. He's a bit old-fashioned and sexist like that. At the beginning of the book, she's more concerned about him running off and replacing her with a younger model because, like, obviously that's kind of his deal, because Ellie's mum was a student at his college as well. As the books go on, she becomes less involved in being worried about their relationship and starts wanting an identity for herself. And I really lived for it when I was reading these books. Like, I really liked the sense of independence that Anna was getting, and the way that even though the two of them didn't get on at the beginning, Ellie would like encourage her to go after what she wanted regardless of how it made the dad feel. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I just wanted to set a precedent for it here. We cannot talk about girls in love without talking about Dan, who is the main love interest, arguably, of the book. When I was younger, I loved Dan, and I could not understand why Ellie wanted nothing to do with him. I thought that his relentless pursuit of her was romantic as hell, and I thought the fact that she was constantly pushing him away and being so difficult and not reciprocating at all, and, you know, he was just insisting that they were boyfriend and girlfriend anyway, was really sweet. Now I can understand that obviously that behaviour is inappropriate and probably really fucking annoying aside from anything else. I still love Dan, and I still think Ellie was really hard on him, and I think that my love for Dan when I was younger is just indicative of the fact that I just want some man to continue to pursue me no matter how much I push him away. When I block you, sir, write me a letter. I'm just kidding. That's toxic girl culture, and I'm not involved in that anymore, swear. I think I can definitely blame Jacqueline Wilson for making me think I was a lame 13-year-old, because these girls are out here sneaking into nightclubs and going to parties. I was still hanging out at the park after school, right? The next book is Girls Under Pressure, which is the one I do not have a physical copy of. I'm going to put a quick TW at the beginning because I cannot talk about this book without talking about EDs. The plot of this is that Ellie gets a little bit obsessed with her weight because of a few things. Like, obviously, she's a bit bigger than her friend. The two of them enter into a modelling competition and she hears someone make a comment about how fat she is, and it just sends her into this spiral where she starts obsessing over her weight, and it gets to a really unhealthy point. All of the girls have body image issues or self-image issues in this book. Nadine gets through the first round of the modelling competition because she's, you know, quite unique looking, she's quite gothy. She gets all up in her head and decides that she's going to have to turn up to the second round looking like a model, which means looking girly and normal and whatever. Obviously she doesn't get picked because the thing that got her like noticed in the first place was her like uniqueness. I liked the message that this sends. There was a lot of like negativity in this book with the girls like not feeling too good about themselves, and maybe if Nadine had been true to herself she would have got through that second round of auditions and got chosen. We may never know. I do like the fact that it was Nadine that got chosen for this one because of her uniqueness, because you wouldn't normally think of a gothy girl getting a modelling contract at a teen magazine. You usually think of them as very pink and girly girls. So I like the fact that JW was, you know, turning tropes on the head a little bit with this one. I appreciate it. Magda's self-image issue is she goes on a disaster date with a terrible guy who tries to feel her up, and then when she doesn't want him to, he's like, oh, well, we all know what you're like, and then everyone starts calling her a slag for not letting him feel her up. But then she gets upset with herself, like, kind of for not letting him feel her up because now everyone's calling her a slag. And she's like, am I a slag? And I'm like, you didn't let him feel you up. What are you talking about? Obviously, because of the way that Magda is and the way that she dresses, everybody's got this kind of preordained idea of what she's like. Magda's actually the girl that we see involved with the least men throughout the series, which, you know, it doesn't mean anything either way. Like, even if she had the most boyfriends, she's still not a slag, whatever that is. Just that it's interesting that she's the one that's got this reputation for herself, and it's clearly based entirely off her appearance, because she kind of only dates two guys throughout the series, I'm pretty sure. So there you go, where she has this whole self-identity crisis and she dyes her hair back to its original mousy colour and wears a grey fleece to school instead of her usual like mini skirts and fucking feathery jackets and stuff. She gets a pep talk from the girls and stuff, and she comes back with like flaming red hair and she says, oh, I'm not gonna let a man control how I feel about myself, which is like, good for you, sis, good for you. Don't let your reputation get in your way. Trust me, this is something that myself and many other women have had to go through for no particular reason. Anna, the stepmother, has an identity crisis in this one because she meets up with her friend from college, Sarah, who's got her own designer business for like scarves and stuff like that, I think. And Anna's like, oh, I've not done anything with my life because I've had eggs. And she's like, not that I regret my son, it's just that, you know, he's a bit older now, maybe I could do with going out and trying to do something for myself. She starts to want an identity that's separate from her family and separate from the identity that her husband has given her. It's a slow progression throughout the series, but I just really appreciate the fact that it's there, because Jacqueline Wilson could have easily left Anna as this subservient stepmother archetype, and she didn't, and I fucking love that. So this is the part where I'm going to talk about EDs, specifically anorexia bulimia. So if you do not want to hear about that, you still have the opportunity to skip right now, because, you know, I can't talk about the book without talking about this, because it's obviously something that Ellie is experiencing within the pages, even if it isn't said in so many words. Obviously hard to write about these topics without being triggering, because in order to be true to how a person feels and thinks when they have these disorders, you're gonna have to say triggering things. I think that Jacqueline Wilson did a really good job of portraying Ellie's state of mind, where she obviously thinks that the things she is doing are good because she's losing weight. Jacqueline Wilson juxtaposes this with not only other people's thoughts and opinions about how she's getting too thin, she's not doing it healthily, she's not eating enough, she looks terrible, but also Ellie's own observations about her body. Like, as much as she might be saying, oh, I'm getting thin, it's so great, she's saying, oh, my hair is also getting thin, my teeth are getting weak, I feel tired all the time. She does acknowledge that it is having this negative effect on her body, and I think it is important to note things like that only you yourself would notice. You know, Jacqueline Wilson obviously did her reading and tried to inject as much negativeness around the eating disorders as she could possibly inject when telling it from the perspective of someone who is developing this eating disorder. Because she'd been going to the swimming pool and the exercise classes at the school, she'd reconnected with this old school friend called Zoe, and Zoe does have anorexia. She's diagnosed. It's kind of a well-known-ish thing, like the teachers know it and stuff like that. And Mrs. Henderson, who's actually a great character in the book, a strict teacher character that like you find out has a soft side throughout the course of the book. She actually tells Ellie about this because she can see that Ellie is kind of idolizing Zoe until that point. Zoe, who is the catalyst for Ellie realizing that her behaviors are unhealthy. It is kind of a slow realization throughout the book. Like, she does say she doesn't ever want to be like Zoe, but she's still continuing with the unhealthy behaviors. And then at the end of the book, Zoe does go into hospital. Ellie goes to see her, and it's this that kind of snaps Ellie out of the behaviors that she's having. It is kind of like a fairy tale ending to the book, and it does kind of clip it off nicely so that Ellie doesn't have to actually go through the rigmarole of having an eating disorder. But the unhealthy thoughts and some of the habits that Ellie developed in this book do continue throughout the rest of the series. So I appreciate that, you know, she didn't just go and get scared into being cured from an eating disorder, like at the end of the day. So that was handled pretty well. It's weird how much of this book I have retained. I think because I had my own struggles with weight growing up, this is the one that really stuck with me. It's mad some of the stuff that stuck with me, like whenever I'm trying to lose weight or get fit or get to a certain whatever, I always think about Mrs. Henderson saying to Ellie, are you trying to get fit or are you trying to get thin? And I always think of that, and I always think I would rather be healthy. Another teacher that says some interesting stuff in this that I absolutely loved is the art teacher. He comes in with this big long speech about women in art history and how like the painters painted different types of women based on what was the standard of beauty at the time. Just really gives you a bit of perspective about like how the societal standard of beauty is always changing, and so it's stupid to try and fit exactly to like the model of perfection, because once you achieve it, chances are the model of perfection will have changed, and there's gonna be nothing you can fucking do about it. One thing I want to mention really quick, because I noted it down during the course of this book. Obviously, I've mentioned that the dad is a little bit sexist. It is acknowledged throughout the books, and you can't change your dad, really, and I think it does kind of help him to be, like, surrounded by these two younger women all the time. The one thing that I don't like, and that really turns me off to the dad character in general, is that every time Magda is mentioned, it's kind of implied that, like, dad fancies Magda or like think she's like an attractive young girl, and it's like, but because Magda's 13, it's really fucking weird, my guy, and you need to behave. So yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of the dad character, but like I feel like he had to be that way in order for Anna to have her come up, and so, you know, we gotta appreciate him. Now we are on to Girls Out Late. This is the most stressful book in the entire series. The girls are getting a bit older now, they are being treated to a bit more responsibility, but they are not handling it very well. The example of this in the title being the fact that they have a curfew, and throughout this book I think they stick to it maybe once. The plot of this book is a little bit more all over the place. She is out with the girls one day and they meet this guy called Russell. Russell is very interested in Ellie. She ends up staying out late with Russell. She gets grounded. She goes out to see Russell the next day anyway, but Russell doesn't turn up because Russell was also grounded, so she thinks she got stood up, so her and her friends decide to go to a concert in order to cheer her up, but then Russell turns up on her doorstep because he walked her home that first night and explains that he was grounded, and then he says, will she come to this big dance with him? But the dance is on the same night as the concert, and she ends up going to the concert with the girls after a little bit of drama with that, which I'll get into in a little bit, and they have this scary experience with some men because the concert gets cancelled and they want to stay out for a girls' night out, and it's scary, and that's pretty much the end of the book. I didn't mean to go into that much detail, but it just happened. I think, let's start with Russell. I don't like Russell, and it's not just because I loved Dan. Okay, I gave Russell a fair chance. Never really liked Russell when I was younger either. And it's not just because of things that happen in later books. It's like from the offset, I never liked him. I think he's a bit of a creep. And especially now that I'm older and I'm reading this now, I really don't like him, and I have a numbered list of Russell's red flags for you here. So, Russell's red flags. Number 1, he follows Ellie home. I wouldn't mind if Ellie had acted particularly interested in Russell, but Russell makes all these advances on Ellie, and Ellie's quite nervous and shy, and so she doesn't actually give him any indication that she wants him to follow her or that she's interested in him in any way. So he just follows this random group of girls home with the intention of following this one specific girl home. And yeah, he's made himself known to the girls, but like that doesn't make it any better. Like, what if they're just too intimidated to tell him to fuck off? And like, Ellie's friends don't help with this. Friends do not in these situations. Like, they want him to come along and stuff, but like Ellie's very unsure. And like, I feel like Russell should have picked up on that instead of using her friends as like an advantage to get what he wanted. Like, just because her friends want you to get off with her doesn't mean that she wants to get off with you. So Ellie is out way past curfew already because she and Russell have been talking for so long, and Russell clearly wants a kiss. And instead of just letting her go home and saving the kiss for their next date, or getting on with it and giving her a fucking kiss, Russell just keeps insisting that she stay while they work up the courage, even though Ellie is clearly getting like worked up and anxious that she's not going to be home in time, and he knows that she's going to be in trouble. Like, he doesn't know anything about her family or anything. Like, worst case scenario, she could have like an abusive parents, and she could get like in really, really big trouble when she gets home for being late. But Russell doesn't care, he wants a snog. As soon as Russell gets the opportunity, he starts ranting about how much he hates his dad's girlfriend, and he just sounds like a spoiled little brat in general. I don't know, just like a guy who like immediately comes off as entitled. Massive red flag, massive red flag. Do not like Russell. He also says to Ellie, and I understand that this was considered a compliment at the time, so, you know, whatever. He says that Ellie is not like other girls, and you know, he's only just met her, so he doesn't really know that, and it feels like he's just saying it as a cop-out so that she'll kiss him. He's very, very pushy in this first scene, and I don't like it, and I can't help but feel like Jacqueline Wilson has intentionally written him as a morally grey, not very good character, and I don't understand why, if she wasn't going to end the series with the two of them splitting up and Ellie realising that she can do better, because that is not how the series ends. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We are talking about Russell's red flags, and the next one is, it's not even a red flag, it's a red circus tent mate, because actually he manages to smack one on Ellie, and then he starts feeling her up, and Ellie very clearly says the word don't. She says don't. And Russell just carries on, and he just says please, and because she doesn't do or say anything else, he just takes that as a yes. Oh my god. No! This is the main love interest of the series. I don't know what Jacqueline Wilson was doing with this. I don't think we as an audience are supposed to like Russell, so why does nothing come of this? I know not. Got any more red flags? Oh yeah, obviously, like, her friends and her decide to go to a concert to cheer her up, and then when she and him get back together after the little misunderstanding, he like always slags off her friends, and he's like, oh, you talk about them all the time, and he calls Magda, like, he basically implies that Magda's a slag and stuff like that, and it's like, why are you jealous of her friends who she's known like her entire life, like, and she's known you like 2 days? Like, get a grip of yourself. And he's older than her as well. Like, this is one of the relationships where it's like, I think he's like 16 and she's like 13. And it's like, ugh. But I don't know. And then obviously his big school dance is on the same night as the concert. And he actually tries to convince Ellie to miss out on a live music concert to go to a fucking school dance. Is he serious? And then when Ellie tells him, obviously she made plans with the girls first and so she can't cancel, he goes, oh well, I'll just find another girl to go with me then. Like, fuck off, do it then, Russell. Who gives a shit, you floppy-haired dick? Should we find a picture of him? Like, just to show you, like, this is the man who is so enraged by my ire. Look at him, this stupid prick. Anyway, the concert does get cancelled, but the girls are already wherever they're supposed to be, so they go looking for some fun. Nadine ends up getting in the back of this weird goth guy's van. The fact that the boys can drive means they are at least 17, which again makes this a weird age gap relationship. The other two girls get in the van as well. They end up getting driven to God knows where. The boys are scary. They're trying to make them drink and smoke weed and they lock them in their flats. Just like climb out the window and run off. And they end up having to get like a free taxi home. Which, you know, lucky, but unnecessary. I just find it weird that there are so many creepy 17 to 19-year-old guys in these books. Very much does scare people away from age gap relationships in this, which is good because like 14-year-olds are reading them and it's like, just don't have relationships when you're 14. Like, just don't. Now we do it. Girls in Tears. I don't know why I'm dancing because like this is like the one that I enjoyed the least out of the whole series. As you can probably tell by the title, it's got some very negative plot lines. There's a lot of sadness and there's a lot of disconnect between the girls themselves. And I just felt like it was a really sour note to leave the series on. And it's another reason why I think that Jacqueline Wilson should definitely do a catch up on this series like she did with Tracy Beaker, like Girls Grown Up. I would love to see that. And I would love to see that Ellie is not still with Russell, surely. Like, please. Girls in Tears is the most random of the books. There's just a lot of random events making the girls cry. Makes for a very light reading. Basically just, you know, Ellie and Russell are out of the honeymoon period and they're having troubles in their relationship. Magda's hamster dies. Ellie and Nadine have a fight because Nadine's talking to a stranger over the internet and she has no idea who he is and he's saying all these weird sexual things. You know, stuff that we'll get into in a minute. Oh, another reason I enjoy this book the least is because there's a lot of Russell and Ellie is obsessed with Russell and I'm just as obsessed with Russell. Not because I love him, it's because I hate him. I fucking hate him. When I was younger, it was more of a, oh, you know, I dislike him, but it's a boy and it's the love interest, so I take what romance I can from it. But the red flags continue. The thing that I dislike the most about Russell is that he has these fits of passion and jealousy and he like storms off on Ellie in public and she has to like run after him and shout and she always does. It's quite pathetic. She always does. And he just completely embarrasses her and it's usually for no fucking reason. Like she says she's got to go and do some shopping because Anna and Dad are arguing and nobody was going to do it, so she goes to do it and he leaves her and then he comes back because he feels bad for leaving her to do shopping on her own and she's ended up talking to this guy who she vaguely knows in the supermarket and he literally sees her talking to this guy who's gay, by the way, not that it matters, and just immediately assumes that something's going on and flounces off in the middle of the supermarket and she has to run through the supermarket with her like cart full of shopping in order to catch him and explain what's going on. And it's like, wow, Russell, you really are the biggest dick. He always like talks down to her. It's because she's younger than him and it's like, well, if you're gonna talk down to a girl because she's younger than you, then go out with someone your own age, you creep. Like, he always wants to teach her stuff, like proper like mansplain things to her, even stuff that she's good at, like art. And like, it's got a really weird vibe. Like, it's like he's gone out to get this younger girlfriend because he's not really popular in school, like that's also implied, and like he wants her to like worship him because he's older and think he's so smart because he's older and like kiss his feet. because he's older. Magda and Nadine don't like Russell either, and usually when your friends don't like someone, that's a good indication that they are not actually as good a person as you think they are in your rose-tinted glasses haze. The book does not end with Ellie and Russell splitting up. Jacqueline Wilson writing another book. I mentioned Nadine is speaking to a stranger of the internet. This stranger does in fact turn out to be like an 80-year-old man who's got a thing for young goth girls. Like, she goes to meet him, and again, the other two girls follow her to the cinema where they're supposed to be meeting and rescue her. Again, Jacqueline Wilson includes some of the messages that he sends so that girls can recognise some red flags if anyone in real life should say these things to them. He says like really, really sweet and romantic stuff, and it's like right alongside all the sexy, dirty stuff. Jacqueline Wilson doesn't immediately introduce these guys as like creepy predator dudes. She introduces them as like this dream guy who says all the right things, because that's how these predators first present themselves. It's clever the way that she's done it. There's obviously a clear disconnect between the way that the girls see the messages and the way that I see them. Like, I can obviously recognize that this is an older dude who has a thing for younger goth girls, but the girls don't know that. They've never experienced a guy like that. They've never even, like, the internet is like a new thing in these books, you know what I mean? Anna's now got her own job and it's going really well. It caused some tension between her and Dad, but like, I think he kind of gets used to it. Subtle feminism in Jacqueline Wilson books is something that I'm absolutely living for, and my absolute favourite bit in this entire book is when Russell's dad is asking Ellie about her family, and she says that her stepmom has got like her own jumper business, and he says, oh, does she sell them at craft fairs? And she's like, oh no, it's a legitimate company, you know, like she's gonna be in Vogue and stuff. And it's just, oh, it's just great. I just love it. Fuck you, Russell's dad, you raised a prick. The book ends with Magda and Russell snogging at a party. There's a fallout between all of them, and Ellie ends up forgiving both of them. Fine with forgiving Magda. There were extenuating circumstances, you know, they'd been drinking, she'd recently lost her hamster, so she was very sad and she was looking for validation the way that Magda does through men. They've been friends for so long, and Russell's just a guy who Ellie was seeing, so it's not really worth risking the friendship. Don't agree with her forgiving Russell, but at the end of the day, I guess if that's what Ellie wants to do, then I can't stop her. If she wants to be a fucking idiot and go out with Red Flag Central, who am I to judge? Final thoughts. Ellie, as main character, she's a dramatic bitch, but she's very lovable. She's very blind about Russell, but that doesn't make her unlikable. It just makes her a teenager. There is one thing throughout the series that is never addressed, and that I would have liked to have seen addressed. She does actually self-harm quite a lot, and by that I mean when she has these thoughts about how fat she is and stuff, she'll like punch herself in the gut and things. And these thoughts don't go away throughout the rest of the series. She still has them in the last book, and she still does these things, and it's never even really acknowledged as like self-harm or as like something that she needs to stop doing. I would have liked a little like nod to it at some point, like somebody catch her doing it and say, you need to stop doing that to yourself, or something, just something at her acknowledging that she needs to stop, anything. But I would have just liked to have seen it acknowledged and maybe healthily put away in a box. I don't know what my point is with this, but I just wanted to say it anyway. Why is Nadine always the one who is involved with like creepy older men? And are you trying to imply that all goth men are paedophiles? Because if so, we're not ready to have that conversation. I'm kidding. I was raised in a goth town, like, well, you know what it's like, all right? I really, really enjoyed reading these books again, and I'll definitely probably come back to them at some point in the future, and I will try my very hardest to pass them off to my niece when she's maybe in year 9 herself. She's not much of a reader, unfortunately. I did buy her a lot of books when she was a baby, but she just doesn't give a shit now, unfortunately. So I'm still on my own. A follow-up is definitely needed. Girls Grown Up, Jacqueline Wilson, I'm ready. I'm probably going to rewatch the TV adaptation that was made of this as well to see how that measures up. And I know that there were a lot of other Jacqueline Wilson adaptations that I've not even seen in my lifetime. So I'm really excited to just continue on this Jacqueline Wilson journey. That's been it. See you next time.